In this lesson, we're going to learn how to choose a good topic to write a story. Now, to choose a good topic, a writer narrows the focus. This keeps the writing from being too broad or too general. When you write something, you want it to be focused on a specific topic, and you want to include interesting details to capture your reader's attention. Let's look at the writing prompt for this week. There are many different kinds of performances. Think about a time you performed or watched someone perform. Now, write a story about this performance. Now, before we start writing, there's two very important things we need to think about. One is the purpose of the writing, and that's the reason that we're writing. And then the second thing we have to think about is the audience, and that's who is going to be reading or writing. Who are we writing this for? Now let's look at the purpose. We know based on the prompt that we're going to be writing a story. So we're probably going to be writing something that's going to entertain somebody. So the purpose of this assignment, or this piece of writing, is going to be to write a story about a performance. Now, you may not have ever been in a performance or had to perform before. You probably have watched someone perform, but the neat thing about being an author and writing is that even if you have never performed, you can still imagine what it would be like to perform and write this story based on what you think it would be like to perform. Sometimes writers write stuff that really happens to them, and sometimes they stretch the truth just a little, and that's okay if you do that too. So the purpose of this writing is to write a story about a performance. The audience of this writing, this is who you're writing for, is going to be your teacher and classmates. So you want to keep them in mind as you're writing, because you're going to want to write things that are interesting to them. Now let's look at how to choose a good topic, not to choose something that's too broad. Good writers choose their topics with their purpose and their audience in mind. And a good topic should not be so broad or large that the writer cannot clearly tell about it. A good writer narrows the topic so that there's a clear main idea and then chooses specific details that tell about it. Now, I need to look at each topic choice and think about whether or not I can clearly explain it in my writing. Now, this first topic, playing sports, that's too broad, because there's so much I could write about playing sports. There are so many sports. There's baseball and soccer and swimming and basketball and hockey. I mean, there's so many more than that. So that's way too much to write about. Being on the soccer team, that's also too broad, because there's so many different parts about being on a soccer team. You could write about working with your teammates. You could write about soccer practice. You could write about uniforms. You could write about so many different things. But let's look at the third topic, the time my soccer team won the big game. That third topic is about just one soccer game, and that's a topic that I could write about. It should be easier to write about. I can add interesting details, and the writing won't be too long. So this is a good topic to write about. Now let's look at these examples down here and decide if it's too broad or just right. A hike in the woods last weekend. Well, that's one event that I could write about in a short piece of writing, so I think this one is just right. Hiking? Well, there's so many different things about hiking, so this one is much too broad. How about hiking with friends? Again, there's so many different things I could write about hiking with friends. It wouldn't be very specific and engaging to my reader. So I'm going to say this one is too broad as well. Let's look at this next group of 3 writing topics. My neighborhood, the bookstore in my neighborhood, neighborhoods in my city. Well, there are a lot of neighborhoods in my city, and that is definitely too broad to write about in one short piece of writing. My neighborhood, there's really a lot that I could say about my neighborhood, so again, that's probably too broad. But if I want to write about just the bookstore in my neighborhood, that is a just right topic. So now it's your turn. Let's go back and think about this prompt. There are many different kinds of performances. Think about a time you performed or watched someone perform. Now write a story about this performance. I want you now to brainstorm a list of good topics that you could use to write to address this prompt.